Welcome to the Hair, Babes and Business podcast. My name is Jess and I am your host. I have over 14 years of experience in the hair industry and have owned and successfully fully booked out 2 of my own hair salons. And now I'm taking a step back from being behind the chair to be here with you instead, teaching you all of the skills, knowledge and advice that I've learned along the way. I want to teach you everything that I've learned so that you can learn from my mistakes and don't have to learn these lessons the hard way. Every week I bring out new episodes for you where I tackle industry issues, talk about what's trending and what's not, share business insight, bring on different guest speakers with different levels and areas of expertise within the industry, and figure out ways that we can make our businesses successful and profitable. I'm so excited you've decided to join me today. Let's get into it. Hello, my beautiful hair babes and business community, and welcome back to the Hair Babes and Business podcast. My name is Jess and I am your host, and today I'm bringing you a really important episode called 6 Things I Wish I Knew Before Hiring Staff. I just think this podcast episode is so important to share with you, and it's going to be so helpful to so many of you. And I just wanted to make it very clear before we dive into today's episode. If you have had nothing but good experiences with staff, I am so grateful that that has been your experience, but I do just want to make it very clear to you that that is not always the case. And sometimes you might think that you have someone that's really great and really trustworthy, but just be warned that sometimes things do change and things do happen, and it's just important to make sure that you follow these steps to make sure that you cover yourself and make sure that nothing bad happens. As business owners, we know how important our businesses are and how important it is that we protect our babies or our businesses. And I just think it's really important to make sure you put these steps in place to make sure that someone who maybe doesn't have the best intentions doesn't come in and ruin the beautiful, incredible thing that you've built. I just think it's really important to make sure you protect and cover yourself. So that's why I really wanted to bring you this episode today. I've had so many people reach out to me and ask for this exact episode. I've had so many people reach out to me and tell me that they've just had the most horrible experiences with staff doing just the most awful things. And I also have my own story about a staff member that honestly just changed me for life. It really did. It was just a horrific time of my life, a horrific experience. It cost me a lot of business. It cost me some clients. It was very tricky. It was a tricky time. It was a tricky thing to overcome. I would really love to share my story with you because I know that it would be so unbelievably helpful. But unfortunately, this particular person actually decided to sue me for unfair dismissal. And when that happened, we both agreed that we wouldn't share the story when it went through the process of going through the unfair dismissal case. So for that reason, I am not going to share the story, which is such a shame because I know that it would help so many of you. And I've had so many of you message me telling me that you've had very similar experiences to the one that I had. So I am disappointed that I can't share this with you. But what I want to do today is teach you the 6 lessons that I wish I'd known when I was hiring staff. And I know that if I had have put these 6 things in place, I definitely could have avoided a lot of hurt and a lot of trouble that came along with this person and the trouble that it caused for my business as well. Now, obviously, I can't go into great detail about the events that happened that caused me to learn these lessons, but what I can do is tell you why it's important that you implement these lessons, implement these boundaries, and make sure that something horrible doesn't happen to you. So, lesson number 1 would be picky with who you allow into your space. I know that when we're looking for staff, we usually have left it to a point where we're getting pretty desperate and we really do need that new team member or that extra team player. But the thing is, I'm just going to be so brutally honest and so brutally real with you right now. It is going to be far better for you to struggle a little bit longer with the busyness and the exhaustion and all the things that come with needing that extra team member. It's going to be better to struggle with all of the horrible things that come along with that than it is going to be to struggle with bringing the wrong team member into your team. And I just cannot stress that enough. It's so important that you find the right fit for your space. It is detrimental to your business if you bring in the wrong team player. When I worked at the first salon that I worked at, we had a particular person who worked there who didn't really want to be there. They weren't having a great time. And I remember my boss saying at the time, like, you know when this person walks into the salon because the mood changes. Everyone can be having a great time. Everyone can be really happy. Everyone can be, having a really great day. And this person walks into the space and the whole mood shifts and the whole mood is brought down. And I remember taking note of that afterwards and watching it play out and watching it happen and seeing it happen myself, see it happen in front of my own eyes. And it was so true. The second this person walked into the space, they were like a little storm cloud and they just brought the whole mood down and the whole energy down and the whole vibe down. And I've done a lot of research into this kind of thing and moods and energies and all that sort of stuff. And it is much easier for someone who is in a bad mood or a bad energy or a bad vibe to bring down a room of happy people than it is for a happy person to come in and lift the mood in a room of sad people or in a room of angry people. It is much easier for one negative person to bring down the mood of the collective if they're all happy than it is for a happy person to come in and lift the mood in a room full of negative people. And I just think that's really important when it comes to having a strong team, is just making sure that everyone is comfortable and feels like they're in a safe space and feels like they're being loved and taken care of. And you know what it's like, guys, working somewhere where there's someone bringing you down every day, it's not pleasant, and you do spend most of your time in your workplace. So it is really important that you do work with people that you love and get along with and who make the space that you're in a good time and bring positivity to that space, than working with people who are really negative and bringing the mood down. It does have such an effect on your mental health and your mental state. So it's really important that you do just be really careful about who you're bringing into your space. And it's really important that you do find someone who is a right fit for your space, because not only will you notice if it's not, but the other staff members will as well, but also so will your clients. And you don't want clients leaving over someone who's not the right fit for your team. So I really do encourage you to be picky with who you allow into your space and just making sure that you are bringing in the right person, not just bringing someone in because you're desperate or because you think you're not going to find the right person. Really take your time to find the right person and make sure you are just complementing the rest of the team, complementing the rest of the salon with the person you bring into your space, not creating issues that don't need to be there. So I think that one is really important. Lesson number 2 is that trial periods are essential. And I would say 3-month trials are a really, really good time frame. Because the thing is, anyone can come into your space and be incredible for a couple of weeks and really go above and beyond and put in their absolute all. But by the time you hit the 3-month mark, you really are getting to that point where you're starting to get tired. You don't have the energy anymore. You don't feel like you want to do above and beyond anymore. And I think it's really important that you keep that trial period, because I think around the 3-month mark, you really are going to get more of a true idea of who that person is and whether or not they really are going to be a good fit for your team or not. I think when it's a 3 or 4 week trial period, that person can still absolutely show up and be the absolute over the top best version of themselves that they'll ever be. And you're not really going to get a true glimpse of who this person is until a couple of months in, when they don't have the energy to be going above and beyond every single day. So I really do think a trial period is essential. And like I said, I really do think 3 months is the perfect amount of time, because if it's anything less than that, it is very easy for them to keep putting on this wonderful show about who they are, because they still have the energy and they're not tired and they can still keep putting in that effort. But like I said earlier, by the time you get to the 3-month mark, it's a bit harder to fake those things. So I think that's really important, just to have that trial period and make sure it's for 3 months. Lesson number 3, once you have someone on your team, you've welcomed them into your space, and it might even be at the start while you're kind of still getting to know them, or even like months or years down the track, it is so important that you don't ignore the red flags. And I just really want to make that clear. And I know that it sounds obvious, but I think at times we do get a bit complacent and we do let things slide a little bit because we want to try and see the best in that person, or we think, oh, they're just having a bad day or whatever it may be. But it really is so important that you stay diligent in keeping on top of things and making sure that you are pulling people up if things aren't happening the way they are supposed to. That doesn't mean that you have to be like on someone's back all the time and making them feel like they're not good enough. But I do just think it's important to be able to say like, hey, like this didn't really fit with what we're trying to do here. Can we talk about this? Or, hey, like I didn't really love how you did that. Can I show you the way I would rather this be done? Or whatever it may be. Like I think it's important to not ignore red flags, especially if there's a few of them and you kind of just keep letting it slide, because these things do eventually add up, and it's much easier to deal with these things when they're little bite-sized problems rather than when it becomes one big giant problem and then you have a long list of things that you're unhappy about. So I think it's really, really important to not ignore the red flags, be able to deal with them as they come up so that you can work through it. And at the end of the day, if you bring red flags up and they don't respond the way you want them to, or they don't actively try and fix the problem that you are having with them, then it's really important to actually consider like, is this person really good for my team or not? And if not, it might be time to move them along. But if you can see that they are actively trying to be better and trying to fix their mistakes and trying to fix the things that aren't fitting in with like your beliefs and your morals and your vision for your salon, if they are trying to actively become better, then that's amazing. And you know that this person is teachable, they're there for the right reasons, and they're going to be a valuable member of your team. So lesson number 3 is don't ignore the red flags. Lesson number 4, don't let your kindness become a weakness. This one is so tricky because I really do think to be a great boss, you should be really kind and compassionate and empathetic and caring towards your staff. Like I think that is so unbelievably important, but at the same time, you need to not let your kindness become a weakness, because I think there are some people out there who can absolutely sense when a person is very kind and doesn't really want confrontation and doesn't really want to have these horrible, awkward conversations, and they will absolutely take advantage of that and they will absolutely walk all over you. So I think it is really important to know that you can absolutely be the kindest, most beautiful, caring, loving boss of all time, but also be really strong in knowing how to manage your team and know that you are the boss, you make the rules, you make sure that everyone is living up to your standards, doing the right thing by the salon, doing the right thing by the clients, doing the right thing by the team. You can absolutely be both. And I think we have to get out of this mindset that you can't be like a strong, badass boss woman, but also be really kind and caring and compassionate. Like you can absolutely do both. Do not let anyone tell you any differently. But I think it's just really important to not let people see your kindness as a form of weakness. Don't let them mistake the good person you are for being a weak person. Make sure that you are strong with instilling your boundaries and making sure that people are doing the right thing. Because at the end of the day, it is your business and you have to protect it. And if people sense weakness, they will take advantage of it. And we don't want people taking advantage of us or our businesses. So yeah, lesson number 4 is don't let your kindness become a weakness. Lesson number 5. Now, if I were to give you a piece of information out of everything that I have ever spoken about on the podcast, on the socials, on the YouTube, everywhere, if I was to give you the most important piece of advice about running a business, and not even just a hair salon business or like a beauty spa business or like something in the hair and beauty industry, just any business in general, is that your number 1 protocol when anything is to happen or you need advice ever about anything is to call Fair Work. Now, obviously, if you're not listening from Australia, you will have your own version of this. In Australia, it's called Fair Work Australia, but wherever you are, you will have some kind of business that you can contact for business advice, and it's about anything that you need advice for. You can call this number and they will direct you how to do what you need to do. I just think this is so important because you could have someone do the most unbelievable, horrific things to you and make a mockery of you and a mockery of your business and lose clientele and make gigantic mistakes and treat you terribly and do appalling things. But if you don't call Fair Work and find out how to deal with that situation, no matter what has happened up to that point, if you don't handle it correctly, you can be in trouble. And I just think this is so important to talk about. Okay, it might take up a little bit of your time, but it's a free phone call. You can get the advice you need. You can make sure that you step by step follow what they tell you to do to cover yourself and your business. And I just absolutely cannot stress that enough. That is honestly my number one piece of business advice to anybody in business. If you have any questions, doubts, concerns about anything, it doesn't even have to be about staff. It could be about any practices or boundaries or rules or just anything to do with business at all. Ring Fair Work Australia, because they are going to know the answers. They're going to tell you the correct way to go about things. There's going to be a paper trail, and it's just going to cover you and make sure that nothing falls back on you and that you don't get punished for something that isn't your fault because you just haven't taken the correct steps to do what you need to do. And I just think that's so unbelievably important. Again, I can't go into detail about this because there's just so many complexities to this, but the amount of people that have messaged me and told me just the most horrific stories about things that staff have done to them, but because they haven't gone about getting rid of them correctly, they're being sued for unfair dismissal. And I just think it's so critically important that we have this conversation and talk about why it's so important to do these things, because like I said, it could be like the most unbelievably awful thing that's happened to you, but because you haven't taken those correct steps, you're the one that ends up being in trouble. So I just think, like I said, this is the most important thing that you can take away from everything that I've ever taught you. If you are unsure, if you need help, if you need advice about anything ever, make sure that your first phone call is to Fair Work, because they will 100% direct you on what to do, and they will make sure that you are completely covered so that nothing bad falls back on you. So lesson number 5 is always call Fair Work. And finally, lesson number 6 is set healthy boundaries. The question that I want to ask is, can you really be friends with your staff? And this is so tricky because I think this is a different answer for every single person and every single staff member. Obviously, if you have a team of people, you can't be giving some people special treatment and other people not so much. Like, you have to set this boundary very clear from word go so that you make sure that you're treating everyone the same. But I think it is tricky to be friends with your staff and still be able to have the respect and the boundaries of being their boss. Now, like I said, this is completely personal and it really is up to your own discernment to decide whether you can be friends with your staff or not. Now, I'm not saying that you can't be friendly with your staff. Of course you can. Of course you guys can go out and get drinks sometimes and, you know, have your lovely staff outings and still be really talk about your lives and share each other's lives and, enjoy being with each other and in each other's space while you're in the salon and communicate about what's going on in your lives and all of those sorts of things. But to actually be friends with them, as in like hanging out all the time, hanging out on the weekends, knowing each other's nitty-gritty details, and then still having that same level of respect in a boss and employee relationship is really tricky to do. And I just think it's easier to not enter that territory because it is really tricky once you've become really close with someone to be able to put that boss hat on and be like, hey, we need to talk about this because I don't love what's happened. Or, hey, we need to talk about your work. This isn't quite right. We need to do some further training, or whatever it may be. Once you have that level of friendship, it's really hard to be able to get that authority back, where when you're in the workplace, suddenly you do have this level of accountability over what this person does and says in the salon space when you're out on the weekends and just as friends, you're both equals. It's hard to find that, I don't want to say power balance, but it is kind of a power balance, to be honest. Having that relationship where in the workplace, you are the person that has to pull them up on things that you're not happy with or pull them up on their mistakes. It's very hard to find that balance when you are both equals, when you're hanging out on the weekends or hanging out after work. So I just think it's really important to set healthy boundaries. Like I said, personally, I think it's best not to be friends with your staff. But if you choose to do that, it's just important that you do set those healthy boundaries so that you know that when you are in the workplace, they are an employee and they are required to respect you, listen to what you have to say, and follow the rules that you're putting in place. So I think that's just really important. So lesson number 6 is set healthy boundaries. Now, guys, I know this has been almost a bit of a hard episode to listen to, and maybe it felt like a bit of a, I don't know, not very nice pep talk, but I just think these things are so important to ensure that you do protect yourself and your business, because like I said, most people are absolutely incredible, but there are those few people out there who see an opportunity to take advantage and they will run with it. And I just want you to protect yourself and your business and make sure that everyone who's coming into your space is being treated respectfully, they're being treated really well, but they're also knowing that there are boundaries and, you know, just making sure that they don't take advantage of you or your business, and that nothing bad comes back to you or your business either. Guys, I also just wanted to quickly jump in here and say that this is something that you never think is going to happen to you. And when you does, it is like so shocking because you just think that it is never going to happen to you. But I also just wanted to say that if it does happen to you, you're not alone. This is a not common, but more common than it should be experience. And it does happen to a lot of people who are good people and who never thought this would happen. So I just think it's important to put it out there that if this does ever happen to you, you are not alone. And also, I just wanted to say that if you do go through something like this and you're really struggling to come to terms with it, don't be afraid to go and seek professional help. I definitely went and saw a counsellor after this had happened to me. And just being able to talk to that third party and like tell someone about what happened and actually get it off my chest and try and cope with it and move forward, it was just really helpful. So don't be ashamed to seek outside help if you need to do that to help you get through it and move on. Now, guys, on the flip side of this, I do just want to say I had a staff member who started out with me very, very early on in the piece as a tea and tidy girl, and she ended up going on to go into beauty. And when I opened my big commercial salon, the last salon that I owned, she actually came in as a beautician, and I did the salon in one half and she had her little beauty spa in the other half. And her and I are still really good friends to this day. We see each other like weekly. We are like so close, and she was such a godsend for me in my business. She went above and beyond. She honestly did love my business like it was her own. She listened to what I had to say. She could take criticism. She knew that I was only trying to teach her and just wanted to nurture her and wanted her to grow up to be the best stylist and then the best beautician that she possibly could be. And I just have so much love and respect for her, and I just think it's important to talk about this side of things too, because like I said, in most situations your staff are going to be absolutely incredible and you're going to be so grateful for them and you're going to be grateful for the help and you're going to be grateful for what they're bringing to the team. But it is just so important to be aware that not everyone has the best intentions, and it's just important to make sure that you cover yourself to protect not only your business but also your heart, because when you invest in someone and you try to see the best in someone and you want to reward them for the good things they do and you want to see them grow and you want them to be the best person they can be in their career, when they do something nasty that you don't see coming and you almost feel a bit blindsided by it, it's really hurtful and it is really painful. And the situation that I went through with the person that this situation happened with, I was heartbroken. I was like, I don't know how I'm ever going to get over this. I don't know how I'm ever going to like hire staff again, and I don't know how to look at my business in this different light all of a sudden. It was really hard to bounce back from that. So like I said, obviously I can't share my experience, but I can share my lessons with you, and I hope that you really get something out of this, and I hope that you do implement these things into your business, because it's so important to make sure you are protecting your heart, protecting yourself, and protecting your business. Well, guys, I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. Like I said, I really want to do the interviews on the Monday and then bring out the educational episode on the Thursday. So I really hope that you enjoy this. I hope you enjoy having a double episode this week. And I just want to thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you so much for your support. It's always a pleasure to be here talking to you. If you haven't already, come join me on the socials. I'm on Insta, TikTok, YouTube, and Spotify. It's so great to have you here, a part of the community. And as always, if you do have any questions, please let me know. I would love to hear from you. I'd love to give any advice that I can. And thank you again so much for being a part of this community. It's such a pleasure to have you here. I'm so grateful for our community, and I'm so grateful for all the opportunities that 2025 is going to bring. Have a wonderful Thursday, guys. If I don't see you over on the socials, I will see you back here for another episode on Monday. Have a great day, guys. Mwah.